Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to the morning devotion. We're going to be in Genesis 42. This is the morning devo with Beau. Beau Willette's my name. Hope you guys are good. Wednesday the 24th is today, another day of World Cup soccer for all you soccer buffs out there. And some of you are like, man, I haven't watched a game at all. It just shows how some people, you can have billions of people on the planet that are super into it. And let's face it, soccer, or what's called football, is the sport probably of the world. Meaning, man, that is a sport that is loved worldwide. Many millions of people watch this game. And this is of course, a tournament that is about the nations. So you have Iran, you have Iraq, you have Jordan, you have the United States, and you have many other teams: Portugal, Argentina, England, France, just amazing. Spain. I mean, so many cool teams in it. I was kind of looking for Italy, but I noticed Italy is not in it. And so there is a way you have to kind of win some games to make the tournament. And some teams, I guess, didn't. So anyway, good morning, friends. Hope you're doing good. Tina, hope you're back in the saddle of this wonderful heat we're having. I mean, it is, 9 a.m. in the morning, and it's 91 degrees outside. So I'm not sure it's much better in, Beantown in Boston. It's probably humid there. So, we can be grateful that it's not too humid where we're at over here in Arizona. But it is hot, that's for sure. And today I'm sure it'll get up to about 110. So it'll be pretty toasty. So when Jacob heard that grain was available in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why are you standing around looking at one another? I have heard there's grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy enough grain to keep us alive. Otherwise, we'll die." We get a good idea of different characters, or different qualities of people, things that are in our life, the way we behave when difficulties come through the biblical lens. And we see here that there is a famine in the land of Canaan. And Jacob hears that there is food available in Egypt. And he says to his sons, "Hey, why are you guys standing around looking at one another?" And I kind of like this. It kind of reminds me of just the way we talk today. What are you doing? Just looking around, doing nothing, right? What are you doing? Just sitting around, staring off at the sky. Why don't you get going and do something? Be productive. Do you see yourself sitting all the time? Are you just constantly a sitter? Just sit. And Jacob says, "Man, why don't you guys get going? Do something. Be productive." Am I a lazy person? Do I find myself being really lazy about things? It's a big question. And am I busy about the right things? That's another good question. It says, so Joseph's 10 older brothers went down to Egypt to buy grain. So they needed their dad to give them the nudge. Hey, go down, take care of this situation. Help out the family. But Jacob wouldn't let Joseph's younger brother, Benjamin, go with him. Remember Benjamin? Yeah. Remember who died? Rachel died, right? When giving birth to Benjamin, son of my sorrow. And then his name was changed to Benjamin, son of my right hand, if you can remember that. And so it says the reason he didn't allow Benjamin to go with the brothers was for fear some harm might come to him. Notice what's in Jacob's heart. There's a lot of fear. Someone's already passed away. In his mind, Joseph is dead. So his one son from his beloved wife is dead, and now he's thinking that if Benjamin goes, he's going to die too. Isn't it amazing how fear grips us? Fear grips in so many ways. It's unbelievable. In a marriage, fear can grip, where you're reacting out of fear. You don't want to confront out of fear. You don't want to do this out of fear. You don't want to do that out of fear. And, fear can be in your relationships with your friends. Fear can be in your relationship at work. It can really have a grip on a lot of things, especially when someone, passes away. Then you can really say, hey, I don't want to lose any more. I don't want to lose another person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, control the situation. Benjamin's not going anywhere. You might see that with parents or people in your life where they're afraid that if they let that happen, let that person go or something like that, then they're going to perhaps, some harm is going to come of them. So it's not unreasonable fear, I would say, in Jacob's situation. Egypt's a long trip. He already had one son kind of go missing, in his mind, he's died. And so he's like, I don't know if I want Benjamin to be going. And it says, so Jacob's sons arrived in Egypt along with others to buy food, for the famine was in Canaan as well. Since Joseph was governor of all Egypt and in charge of selling grain to all people, it was to him that his brothers came. When they arrived, they bowed before him with their faces to the ground. And Joseph recognized his brothers instantly, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. Where are you from? He demanded. From the land of Canaan, they replied. We've come to buy food. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they didn't recognize him. He remembered the dreams he'd had about them many years before. He said to them, you are spies. You have come to see how vulnerable our land has become. Now, Joseph has been living in Egypt. He has an Egyptian wife. He's got Egyptian kids. He's looking quite Egyptian. It's amazing how, Joseph, a man of God, lived amongst the Egyptians. And he dressed like the Egyptians, and he looked like the Egyptians. It's not necessarily something's wrong with someone when they dress a particular way. Sometimes we can judge on the outward, but God looks at the heart. And so many times we see that that's a big problem in, religious circles, or I could say even atheistic circles. Even as I was growing up an atheist, we tend to judge people so much by the outward. Oh, look at them. It's funny. When people dressed really nice and they wore button-up shirts and they tucked it in their pants, to me, that was a sign of evil, if you can believe it. I kind of thought people that had any money, that dressed nice, that looked all plush, that was the evil empire. Those were the people that were subjugating everybody, and that needed to be brought down. See, it can happen both ways. Some people will look at people that are poor and the way they dress, or some culture or subculture, and they'll look at the way that culture dresses, and they'll kind of put them down. And then sometimes people that, see people that are dressed up all the time, they'll put those people down. It's amazing how we look to the outward so much, right? Well, Joseph looked Egyptian. I mean, that would be a trip. I mean, how many of us would really trip out on Joseph's dress if he were to walk into our church, the way he looked at this time. The Hebrews, those living in Canaan, didn't even recognize him. And so Joseph gives him some, right? What are you doing here? Are you out to spy? I mean, these are huge kind of questions to these people, to his brothers. Are you spies? Have you come here to see how vulnerable we are? What is Joseph doing? Joseph is putting his brothers in a very crazy situation, that perhaps they are spying on the government of Egypt for another nation, another country. I mean, this is like, jail words, like you're going to go to court, you're going to get busted. I mean, this must have been a terrifying experience for the brothers. "No, my lord," they exclaimed, "your servants have simply come to buy food. We are all brothers, members of the same family. We are honest men, sir. We are not spies." They are trying to defend themselves at all cost. Scary being in a foreign country. I mean, I only have a small understanding of this from when I used to go to Tijuana growing up. And, from the United States, going into Mexico, a border town, doing stupid stuff. And then people being, handcuffed and put in the back seat of the Confederales. And you have to kind of pay money to get them out. When you're in a foreign land, man, it is scary when you think you're going to go to a foreign jail. I mean, it's scary enough to think you're going to go to jail, but to go to a foreign jail and have to deal with that situation, I mean, that can be, who knows what's going to happen? What is the court going to do? Are they going to just know you're a foreigner and just, that's it? You're going to get lost? I mean, that's a scary situation. And so they're saying, "Hey, we're not spies." "Yes, you are," Joseph insisted. "You have come to see how vulnerable our land has become." And this is from the governor. Joseph's the governor of Egypt. "Sir," they said, there's actually 12 of us. We, your servants, are all brothers, sons of a man living in the land of Canaan. Our youngest brother is back there with our father right now, and one of our brothers is no longer with us." But Joseph insisted, "As I said, you are spies. This is how I will test your story. I will swear by the life of Pharaoh that you will never leave Egypt unless your younger brother comes here. One of you must go and get your brother. I'll keep the rest of you here in prison. Then we'll find out whether or not your story is true. By the life of Pharaoh, if it turns out that you don't have a younger brother, then I'll know you are spies." Man, that is crazy stuff. Could you imagine, man, these brothers thinking like, "Oh, man, our dad doesn't want to let Benjamin go and travel all the way to Egypt. But if we don't do this, we are going to Egyptian jail." Sometimes we fail to remember just how scary it might be for foreigners, for people, maybe fleeing some area, maybe fleeing from an area, trying to get over. And we have no clue what it's like to be in their shoes. We have no sympathy, no empathy at all. They fear for their life. They fear of what's going to happen. How are they going to get money? How are they going to get food? But they're trying to seek a better life. What's going to happen? Are they going to go into jail? What's going to happen when they're in jail? I mean, here the brothers are reeling because of what Joseph is saying. So Joseph put him in prison for 3 days. And on the third day, Joseph said to them, "I am a God-fearing man. If you do as I say, you will live. And if you really are honest men, choose one of your brothers to remain in prison. The rest of you go home with grain for your starving families. But you must bring your youngest brother back to me. This will prove that you are telling the truth, and you will not die." To this they agreed. So one brother's got to stay in jail. The rest are going to go, but they're going to go with food to take care of their family back in Canaan. But the whole goal is to get their dad, their old man, to let Benjamin go with them. So to come back to Egypt. So speaking among themselves, they said, clearly we are being punished because of what we did to Joseph long ago. So their brains are thinking, they have guilty complexes. They know they're guilty. And so everything that goes on in their life is looked at through that lens of what they've not confessed. Hey, maybe God's, judging us for this. Maybe this is happening because of what we did. It's always going back to that. Isn't that amazing when we don't confess our sins, when we don't just talk to God about it, tell him what's going on in our life, that we start looking at everything through that lens. Oh, God didn't do this because of this, because of what I did, and because of what I did. It's like guilt is running the show in the heart. And by golly, it's probably a good thing for these guys. They did something horrible. Horrible to Joseph, horrible to their family, and of course horrible specifically to their dad. And by lying. And so it says, clearly we are being punished. We saw his anguish, meaning our dad's anguish, when he pleaded, or Joseph, they're talking about Joseph. We saw his anguish when he pleaded for his life, but we wouldn't listen. That's why we're in this trouble. Didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? Reuben asked. But you wouldn't listen, and now we have to answer for his blood. Of course, they didn't know that Joseph understood them, for he had been speaking to them through an interpreter. Now he turned away from them and began to weep. And when he regained his composure, he spoke to them again. And then he chose Simeon from among them and had him tied up right before their eyes. Now Joseph understood Hebrew. He understood their language. But they didn't recognize that Joseph was his brother, and Joseph didn't speak to them in their native tongue. He spoke to them in the Egyptian language, and there was an interpreter that was used to communicate with the brothers. So this act of Joseph is really, it's a really good one. The brothers have no idea that Joseph is right before them. So Simeon, Simeon, not the greatest guy in the world. He gets tied up before their eyes. And so Joseph ordered his servants to fill the men's sacks with grain, but he also gave secret instructions to return each brother's payment at the top of his sack. He also gave them supplies for their journeys home. So the brothers loaded their donkeys with the grain and headed for home. But when they stopped for the night and one of them opened his sack to get grain for his donkey, he found his money in the top of the sack. "Look," he exclaimed to his brothers, "my money has been returned. Here it is in my sack." Then their hearts sank. Trembling, they said to each other, "What has God done to us?" When the brothers came to the father, so this is the idea, is that that there's like money that they didn't pay for this. Joseph returned the money that they must have dealt out for the grain. And so it seemed like another injustice has been done. And so when the brothers came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him everything that had happened to them. The man who is governor of the land spoke very harshly to us, they told him. He accused us of being spies, scouting the land, but we said, "We are honest men, not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of one father. One brother is no longer with us, and the youngest is at home with our father in the land of Canaan." Then the man who is governor of the land told us, "This is how I will find out if you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers here with me and take grain for your starving families and go home. But you must bring your youngest brother back to me. Then I will show you then I will know you are honest men and not spies. Then I will give you back your brother, and you may trade freely in the land." As they emptied out their sacks, there in each man's sack was the bag of money he had paid for the grain. The brothers and their father were terrified when they saw the bags of money. Jacob exclaimed, You are robbing me of my children. Joseph is gone, Simeon is gone, and now you want to take Benjamin too. Everything is going against me." Then Reuben said to his father, You may kill my 2 sons if I don't bring Benjamin back to you. I'll be responsible for him, and I promise to bring him back." But Jacob replied, "My son will not go down with you. His brother Joseph is dead, and he is all I have left. If anything should happen to him on your journey, you would send this grieving, white-haired man to his grave." Man, you could see how the brothers' jealousy, which turned into hatred and envy of their brother Joseph, has created a serious problem in this family. They've manipulated their dad, and their dad thinks that Joseph is dead. He thinks he died. And the brothers, for all that they know, that think that maybe perhaps their brother's dead too. But because they don't know what happened to him. But they definitely concocted a very interesting story about Joseph getting slain by a wild beast to their dad, setting up clothes that were all bloodied, things like that, and really freaked their dad out. So much so that their dad will never let go of Benjamin, the youngest son that he has, and the son of his beloved wife, go. And so you could see how their lying and their scheming has just created an issue. And it just reminds me that, boy, a lying tongue, man, can really get us into a lot of trouble. When we know we've done wrong, when we know we haven't done the right thing, instead of just saying we haven't done the right thing. And when you let envy and you let jealousy and you let hatred and resentment and bitterness just keep going, man. You resent your parents and you keep resenting your parents and you keep having hatred towards that person and you keep going with that. It creates so much conflict in your life. You're trying to keep up that persona of the lie. So many people and so many of us human beings, we're putting on masks all the time. It's like we're wearing constant masks, trying to look a particular way, trying to act a particular way, putting on a persona, right? Everything's pretense. It's all a show. It's all to make people think I'm part of a class, I'm part of this, I'm part of that group, I'm part of this thing, whatever it is. And it's not just really us. We're afraid to just be us and be honest about our frailty, things that we struggle with, whatever it is, those kind of things. You could see how important it is to talk about this stuff because, obviously these brothers didn't do the right thing. Instead, they allowed these emotions to get the best of them. One of the brothers could have easily said to their dad, "Hey, all these other brothers are lying. What we did is we sold Joseph off to Egypt." But instead, the brothers banded together. They were afraid within themselves. They're afraid to break, the brotherly bond of the lie. Instead of, you might have grown up like that, where it's like you have sisters or you have brothers and, you can't tell on your brother. You can't tell on your sister. You have to kind of hold it all together. Or things aren't right in your family, but you can't tell anybody, right? Because it's all secret. Or you might have had a parent that pulls you aside and says, "Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody I told you." Man, and you could see how so wrong. Parents doing the wrong thing, kids doing the wrong thing. So much secrecy and manipulation and jealousy and envy and strife going through the body instead of just us looking at God and looking at our relationship with God and saying, "Hey, God, what do you want us to do in this? What would you have us? Do I really need to tell my kid this? Is that what I need to do? Why do I need to do it? Why am I compelled to have to share this with them?" What is the thing that's going on within me that makes me talk about other people to my kids or to this person or to that person or, this kind of thing? And what am I manipulating? What am I moving? Where's my jealousy? Where's my envy? What is going on within me? Man, this is a great microcosm of, I would imagine, all families on the planet that have these kind of situations, these issues. And it's plethora. It's all of us, man. We all have these kind of situations that go on. Different levels, no doubt. But, Joseph, or you think of Jacob, the dad. He says, man, dude, I'm already an old man. I'm all gray. Dude, you guys are going to kill me. You guys are going to, how many kids, grown kids, adults are killing their parents? I mean, talk about a cool question. How many adult kids are crushing their parents by the way they act, by what they do, by their emotional outburst, by their lack of diligence, or maybe just the lack of honesty? How has lack of honesty affected your parents? Even though you're an adult and you're independent, supposedly. How many adult kids, and it can go to me, how does my actions affect my parents? Jacob's like, man, you guys are taking me out. I know you are, by your actions. I mean, it's a famine and you guys aren't even going to help us. And I mean, you're lazy. You don't want to do anything. You're just so self-focused. And the brothers, I'm sure, have a lot of this guilt stuff working in them. How many adult kids have guilt going on in their heart? And instead of just coming to their parents and saying, hey, I'm sorry. I've really made some mistakes. They just keep going. Keep going. What is the brothers going to do? How is this situation going to get, rectified? What is going to be the fix to this family that has gone through extreme difficulty from the start? 4 moms, half brothers all over the place, jealousy, favoritism, man, a lot of stuff that's gone on in this family, and it's broken up. They're not on the right page. What's going to remedy that situation? And we're going to find out, tomorrow, kind of how this thing plays out and what really is the fix of that. And what real love looks like. Because that's where we fall. That's where we stumble, is we don't know how to love. Where our love is off. We can't love people in our families correctly. We can't love people on the planet effectively. We tend to fall apart and we get stuck with these resentments or anger or bitterness or envy, jealousies. These things get us. And they certainly got Jesus on the cross. People afraid of losing their positions. People afraid of losing their power. Instead of loving an innocent man like Jesus, they even found a trump charge to put him up on a cross. Yeah, this is why the greatest commandment is love. Because this is the greatest need for us as human beings. The greatest command has to do with loving because we are not loving. It is the sign of our ungodliness, our unholiness, our unraveling, if you will, as a race of humans. And so the greatest commandment is love. It's interesting that the greatest commandment isn't something else, right? The greatest commandment is, this. The greatest commandment is that. No, the greatest commandment is love your God. Why? Because we can't love our God. We won't love our God. We are defective. It is the greatest need that we have on the planet. And it's the greatest thing that's going to remedy not only Jacob's family, but our families and the family of God, the church. If you struggle with people in the church, it's because love is the problem, right? Maybe you lack love. Maybe you lack patience. Maybe you lack a willing to submit, a willing to yield, a patience. Maybe that is something that's creating the conflict. See, it always goes back to, can I love? Am I loving? Doesn't mean we have to agree. Doesn't mean we're not going to part ways. Maybe we don't agree and you got to go this way and I got to go this way. But can we be at peace? Can we learn to love? And what's part of love? Joy, peace, patience, kindness, peace, 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 peace. Patience, patience, kindness, kindness. Right? Do I have kindness? Am I kind to people? Or because I don't like what they say, I'm going to, Yeah, you could see how that's why the greatest command has to do with love, because that's where we lack. Laura brings up a great passage. They will know you are Christians by your love, especially to God and to one another. It's so true. You could see why that's so stressed, why it's the greatest commandment. Because it's the need, it's the remedy for our issues. Okay, cool. Great Devo. Man, really came to focus on love, ultimately. So you guys have a great day, okay? We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.